Vielen lieben Dank, ihr drei.
So, Frage, John.
Bitte.
Was haben große Tech-Unternehmen, Apple, Google, Amazon und so, was haben die gemeinsam? Warum haben sie es eigentlich nie so richtig geschafft, so im Banking in Europa Fuß zu fassen? Hat man ja irgendwie immer erwartet, oder?
Ja, das stimmt. Das sind große Finanzplayer, auch in den Heimatmärkten vor allem. Da gibt es ja viele auch Kooperationen mit anderen Unternehmen. Das haben sie echt gut gemacht. In Europa, das ist auch für europäische Unternehmen das gleiche Problem. Das ist ein sehr fragmentierter Markt.
Verschiedene Regeln, andere Kunden.
Richtig, für unterschiedliche Sprachen, ganz kleine Märkte mit einer eigenen Sprache. Also viele Schwierigkeiten, die da irgendwie warten.
Aber ist ja gut, dass du das jetzt aufklärst oder wie man es noch anders machen kann oder was da alles möglich ist mit deinen Gästen.
Das stimmt, das klären jetzt meine Gäste auf. Ich freue mich jetzt darüber zu sprechen, wie eigentlich Fintechs in Europa expandieren können. Dafür haben wir die Produktchefin von Pleo, Mette Garde. Wir haben den Gründer von Taylor, Patrick Stäuble. Und wir haben den Chief Revenue Officer von Swan, Luka Karac. Herzlich willkommen. Take a seat.
Thank you.
Have a seat. Welcome. And for obvious reasons, we're going to do this in English. Otherwise, 2 out of the 4 of us would be struggling, I think.
Quite a bit.
So yes, it's very good to have you all here to talk about something. I think the interesting aspect is we have 3 companies with similar challenges, but 3 very, very different companies. So my goal for this talk at the end is that here and there will be a fintech founder or a future fintech founder in the audience, and they'll have the question, how do I do expansion within Europe well? How do I do it globally well? And we have 3 companies who are tackling this, but 3 companies with very different business models. Mette, let's start with you.
Yeah.
Pleo is a Danish company. You do spend management, and when looking at your website, it looks like a B2C brand. So it looks like it's for end consumers. It's very, very carefully and well designed, and looks like you're going to market it to the whole world rather than B2B clients. And that seems to go into your expansion strategy. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what that factor is and how that has driven your expansion strategy with Pleo.
Sure. As you said, I mean, Pleo is a spend management solution, and we're now 9 years in and have really had a really accelerated growth journey over those 9 years, and are sustaining that. And I think for us, brand and experience has always been really important, and I think it's been what has propelled us to grow that fast. And it has also been what we have put a lot of intention behind when we then have expanded across Europe. And I think that has forced us in many ways to reinvent ourselves, or kind of reinvent our understanding of our product, our offering, and what we need to do to continue to create the same emotions and the same feeling with our customers. And I think that has been the most important thing for Pleo. Pleo stands for more than you expect, and having this focus on the humans that use our products, whether that is a B2C or a B2B, I think we look at the humans that come to work every day, and we think that we can make them successful and make the company successful when we focus on building something that makes them feel empowered and confident.
Yeah. Let's definitely talk about how that works in different markets. But first, I would like to get a different perspective on the same challenge. Patrick, you founded Taylor, a credit platform, and your focus is a little different. I think your focus is in sales and how to do that particularly well. I mean, that doesn't mean that you do the other things not well, but that's your focus lies in sales. Tell me about how that drives the success in expansion.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, for probably a lot of the, let's say, fintech lenders and stuff that there are on the market, at the end, we maybe all do it in a different way with different data, but we're giving loans and we're doing underwriting. And probably with most people, if you look under the hood, the underwriting is not going to be that different from company to company. So where it really makes a difference is how do you find the customers that you want to have. So we are an extremely sales-driven organization. obviously things like branding are maybe a part of that, but I think that for us, sales it doesn't matter really how good your tech is or in my view, how good your tech or how good your whatever else you're doing is. If you can't get the customers in the door, it's all a waste of time anyway. Yeah. And for us, the kind of crux of it is that every single market that we're in or that we want to go to probably has very different ways for how do you speak to a business owner who may or may not want to have a loan, and where do you find these people? So what we look for example, when we entered the Swiss market, we partnered with the local Swiss player because we had the theory, which proved correct, that originating a loan from a Swiss business owner is a completely different, or in Zurich or in Basel, is going to be a completely different process with the completely different channels than if you do it in Berlin or in Hamburg and stuff like that. So what we really look for is, or our fundamental assumption is our core product is good and it works in the German market. But in other markets, we have to work with local players because people tick differently in different markets, and it doesn't matter how good your product is if you can't find a way to convince them to buy it.
And finally, Luca, you're the Chief Revenue Officer for Swan. Embedded finance is what you do, so it's a different business model again. And you seem to focus on the product localization. So for different markets, you do build different products that fit with the markets. How's that driven, that strategy?
Yeah, so for us, since we essentially enable other companies to offer these banking services to their existing clients, and we embed our products within other softwares, it was always essential to localize this infrastructure that we build to each country. Today we work with 120 software companies in 14 countries, but we've only hyper-localized the product to 5 countries so far: Germany, France, the Netherlands, Spain, and Italy. And we realized that every time you go to a new country, to hyper-localize yourself means building a proper local account. And this comes from the core of what we do, from the infrastructure, from the technical infrastructure, and the regulatory infrastructure. And this local account needs to have local regulation, local payment methods. You need local support to answer questions. You also end up sometimes needing local payment methods. So in the Netherlands, people use Maestro instead of MasterCard. And each country brings us a lot of interesting challenges that we start facing first from the infrastructure point of view. And then, of course, go-to-market is super important, but it comes on the second step.
Interesting. All 3 of the answers have, for me, one thing in common that's very obvious, is that it's an expensive endeavor to go into different markets. You always have to see, is it really worth it? And I don't want to diss the Netherlands, but as an example, it's a fairly small country with potentially a small amount of customers in the B2B sector, especially. Is it really worth it expanding into a market like the Netherlands, where you have to really localize the language, localize your products? How's that played out? Luca, maybe you can start on that. Because you just mentioned the Netherlands as a positive example. And how does that work? How expensive is that?
Yes, so when we go into a country, after the product is kind of ready to go, we build an office in the country and we kind of do a mini Swan in each country. So it gets expensive because you have a country lead, someone in support, someone in compliance, and so on and so forth. But these markets for us are quite significant. In the end, the Netherlands is a huge population, very digitalized population, and for the Netherlands specifically, we were pulled by big customers to go into the country. So we made the decision a bit quicker than for new markets. It was a couple of years ago, and now we have more robust processes in place. Luckily, it was a good bet for us, and we work with some of our biggest companies in the country.
Mette, does that work the same way for you? Is just the same product language or the same look and feel for the product work in all the different markets, or do you have to localize the way that Pleos feels in the different markets?
So I think we localize in 2 ways, and it's very interesting listening, because I think we recognize a lot of the same technical requirements that will differ market to market, right? So for us, we look at what are the accounting systems you use that we need to integrate to, or payment methods. But the other part, because brand and experience is so important, it's important that we replicate the feeling that we know that every spender, every finance director or CFO wants, which is that they want to feel in control. They want to feel confident and in control. And that will mean something very different when you're working with a CFO in Denmark or a CFO here in Germany. They both want to feel confident, empowered. They want to be the ones that bring digital solutions to the organization, not be the police. But it will look different how that plays out. I think in Denmark, where we were founded, we built a product that was empowerment through simplicity, transparency, and that gave them the feeling of being in control. I think coming, for instance, to Germany, I think something else was needed to feel like the person that I want to approve is this individual, and I need to make sure that it's that individual that is approved, or the predictability of the process and the planning. So I actually think that our experience and our brand and experience has been tweaked to make sure that we're giving the same feeling, because for us it's about what is that truth that they sit and think that we empower. Which has meant that for our expansion, it has been equally important that we have legal and tech as it is, that we've had user research very early on the ground to have the conversations to understand what will be important.
And I think what both of you were talking about is, in the end, it's good to be there and to speak with the people, not only from a pure language perspective. Of course, French people love to speak French and Spanish people love to speak Spanish, but also the way you approach people and the way you interact with each other is a bit different in each country. And we tend to think of the European market as one market, but it's actually lots of different markets with different technical and more brand go-to-market.
That's probably also a reason why in the fintech sector there haven't really been any good examples of successful US companies coming to Europe, because they're very used to having one big market, which, I mean, in the different states they do have slightly different regulations here and there, but overall the US is one big market where you can grow incredibly well, and then Europe just looks like an expansion disaster. So I have the utmost respect for everyone who tries to go to different markets.
Yes.
Patrick, for you, I mean, you run a credit platform. That must be the most expensive of the three, because you really have the risk factor in it as well. In all your different markets, I assume different factors play into what are potential customers and what aren't. Talk to me about why that is something that you still do. Why do you go into different markets?
Yeah. So the reason why I think that it's important, I'll say like this: I think we would be in a position today where we could say, you know what, let's focus on the German market and build a nice, profitable company, and everyone would have probably a much more relaxing time, and we would be a smaller company, but it would be okay. But I do fundamentally believe that kind of the big opportunity, because Europe is such a disjointed market, means that in a lot of areas of financial services we are super far behind other markets, right? So in our case, in small business lending, you know, for the fact that Europe is probably is the biggest economy in the world, we're probably 10 years behind many other markets in that regard. So the reason why I think it's worth the effort is because that problem is in itself an opportunity to build a big market-leading player, and I think that right now, probably like as in many of our industries, this, especially in the B2B space, this is like the next. I mean, we have Valentin from N26 coming on next. He built one of the big European companies that took advantage of this wave happening in the retail space that's happened over the last few years. And I think that someone needs to take advantage of that same wave in the B2B space, which is why it's a huge pain in the ass to internationalize as a lender, as a financial services provider in Europe. But you know, at the end of the day, that's a barrier to entry for our American friends, for other fintechs who maybe don't have the resources, don't have the know-how, don't have the aggressiveness to do that, whatever it might take. And it's a big opportunity. That's why it's worth it.
Some have been, I think Stripe has been quite a successful company in Europe, and some others, but it's true that each market, you really have to uncover very interesting things. We went to Spain, and suddenly it took us 3 months to get the branch registered in Spain of Swan. And then you need to speak to the tax authorities so that each Swan account that is open in a country can be interacted with tax authorities in each region. So it's lots of processes, lots of things to localize. But over time, that's what the customers need, and they love the digital approach, but they need it to be useful for their business on a day-to-day, and for this, they see the local part of it very, very important, I think.
Yes, and I think there are two other things. One is that I think increasingly so we will have customers that are multi-entity and that operate across Europe, where to serve them, we need to be present in all of the markets. And then the second thing is, I also think it's a superpower. I think when we tap into the very asynchronous development across Europe, I think I have Danish CFOs that learn from Spanish CFOs because the way that they have now looked at e-invoicing, or the way that the regulation progresses is different, and vice versa. That I have Spanish CFOs that look to Denmark to understand, a country that's been at the leading edge of digital infrastructure. How do they operate? And I think if we can use our pan-European reach to really bridge and help advise our customers on how to be successful, then I think we are going to build a good European powerhouse here. Yeah, champion, yeah.
As a journalist, when I ask a company that is in the middle of an expansion or says of itself that it's active in all European markets, very rarely do they ever give me the real numbers on the record on how many customers they have in those different markets. But I mean, I'm a journalist, so sometimes I do get a view behind the scenes of what the numbers actually look like. And sometimes the way that these companies present themselves is very different from what it actually looks like. So they're theoretically available in Greece, but they don't really have any customers there. So I'm really interested in like an honest view from the three of you. What does your European distribution in terms of customers look like really? I mean, what's the main market? How much does that make? And then do you have more than 2 big markets, or is that where it caps? Mette, maybe, or Patrick, you want to start?
I can say for us, we're a Swiss company, but we make 90% of our revenue on the German market. We want to diversify that a bit so that we get over the next 18 months that maybe the German market makes up only maybe 50-60%. Whether that's gonna too aggressive or not, I don't know. But I think that we can. So what we basically want to aim for, what we've got kind of our, let's say, 24-month roadmap is we want to get to, in the next 18 months, to hit kind of about 100 million-ish in revenues, and aim to, we're in planning still, but to aim in roughly 30 to 50 million in M&A spending to buy a lot of that revenue, but then also to put, certainly a large amount of funds into organic growth in the German or in the DACH market generally, to make sure that that share still maybe doesn't become bigger in terms of the overall revenues, but continues to grow on an absolute basis.
How about you?
So we have, I think, 2 numbers to look at. One is revenue, and the other one is logos, that software companies that work with us. I think we have over 50% of logos now outside of France, but software companies, they integrate Swan, they then do a beta phase, and then they grow with us over time. And so it takes us about 2 years to really reach significant revenue with a specific customer. So when we look at revenue, we're more at 70% coming from France today, and the rest coming from other countries. And I hope that over time, these numbers increase in other countries as well.
Of those remaining 30%, when you look at those 70%, how does that distribute among other markets? Is that mainly one market, or is that 5 different markets?
It's really following so on one side, as you were saying, we're available across Europe. But when we make the effort of what I was telling about, of localizing the team, localizing the product, that's where we see a lot of logo and then revenue growth. So it's really by order of when we opened the first countries. Germany is number 1 after France, and we opened it longest time ago. Then we have Spain, which we opened 6-9 months after. And then we have Netherlands, then we have Italy, and then it's distributed across 9 other countries. And they're following a path that's faster than France, of course, because we have a bigger sales organization today and more products to sell. But we're very happy about this growth. And I'm happy that actually our biggest customers today are outside of France. They're not live yet, and they're not generating lots of transactions, but I'm very bullish on the future that they have with us.
So we're in the process of becoming one of your customers, so I can recommend them. At least so far, my product team seems quite happy with you guys.
That's good.
I didn't know that. Mette, give me the real numbers. What does it look like?
No, but I actually think very similarly. What's of course interesting with Pleo is that we started out of Denmark, and Denmark is a small market. And what that means is, if you look to our mature markets, then you would have Denmark, Germany, UK, all contributing And additional markets launched after that in a similar approach. We have France, Netherlands, Spain, Sweden, who are kind of, let's say, contributing based on kind of when we had opened those. And then I think we are opportunistically available in a lot of other markets. But given Denmark was our starting ground, we still have a very strong foothold on par with the other kind of larger markets that we've opened after that.
Yeah, it's interesting. All three of you touched on a point that I was going to follow up on anyways. I mean, expansion into another market isn't just putting money into it or resources. It's also a first attempt at doing something. And with many companies that I have covered over the years, you can really feel that the first different market outside the home market that they go into is something that the founders really are very involved in. They often fly over, they're often there. And then the second expansion is just, well, I don't want to downplay it, but it often feels like, yeah, we're going to do that again. So it feels like deprioritized. And I've noticed that a lot of companies have one very strong market outside of their home market, but then the second expansion is really the one that is a little bit harder. Have you got any experience in that?
On our side, I think it's quite the opposite, to be honest, where we learned a lot. So we did Germany first, then Spain, then Netherlands, and then Italy. And I think we got better at each expansion, quicker to signing larger customers and quicker to revenue, because we learned a lot from the kind of playbook that we started with in Germany and applied then to the new countries. Of course, again, you have a bigger brand at this stage, you have a bit more volume, you seem like a more stable company, so you can attract bigger customers later on in the process. But for us, the next launches were better than the first one, in fact.
Patrick, how was your second expansion, basically?
It was similar to the first one when we went to the Swiss market. I think that what we tried to do, what I guess is probably the best practice, was to try and make kind of a playbook that we could repeat. Didn't work that well, to be honest, but you know, we're always improving it. I think what was almost bigger was that we kind of had to go a bit of a, say, mental change in the company, of rather than saying like, look, we're, you know, maybe just doing one thing in one market, to being maybe more of a platform thinking with different regions, different stakeholders and stuff like that. That was almost the more painful part than actually, you know, going into multiple markets and stuff like that. But I think once you've done that, and if you set the organization up right, then it you know, I guess like with Swan, it's a bit of an easier process.
And at some point, you can't rely on the founders anymore. You need to build the teams that are able to do it by themselves. And that's, I think, essential to a good European expansion in the long term. To have local teams strong that know how to adapt the go-to-market, know which communities to go to and to speak to, which events to come to, like today.
Always here.
Exactly.
Most important.
So I think a strong local team is essential for these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Do you have any experience in that? That was the second expansion for Pleo, Mette?
No, but I mean, I would say the same. I think the hard part for us as a company was that we were doing market expansion alongside really putting full throttle on all our other kind of growth vectors. So, you know, we were going into new markets, we were growing from an SMB product into a mid-market product, we were going from a smart card to a full spend management solution. So I think, you know, on every vector of complexity, we were doing all three at the same time. And then with this aspiration that we need to be distinct in what we do, brand and experience needs to be the same. So the thoughtfulness and the playbook wasn't just a market by market, but really understanding also new persona types, understanding you know, new requirements. So for us, it has been, you know, balancing. We want to push full throttle on growth at any point in time, and we're very ambitious. But just how much can we do without diluting the experience that we want to have?
I think that one of the things that's interesting about that now compared to maybe 3 years ago, I think 3 years ago, when the funding environment was obviously very different for companies like all of ours, I guess, there was a lot more pressure to just expand internationally at all costs, kind of almost no questions asked, just growth, 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 push the equity story. Now there's, of course, still growth pressure, but a bit more, let's say, reasonable growth, go into another market, but please show me a business plan and explain why you think that the unit economics will work to go into that other market, rather than just hire a country manager and We've signed some logos for no revenue and just so it looks good on the pitch deck. I think that's changed a lot, and I think changed how also, I mean, how we think of it and how probably a lot of other companies are thinking about it at the moment compared to 2019, 2020, 21.
I mean, in this conversation, I've already stressed enough how we've got three very different companies here, but overall, you've got more in common than you don't. You're all fintech companies. That's a very different market than expanding in the food space or something. It's very heavily connected with trust within these different markets. That Volt or Tinder or whoever, different tech companies don't really have that, or Facebook or whoever. With fintech, you always have to have, where is it regulated? Do I know someone there? Can I call someone if I have something there? So for the fintech market's really a different question. And is there a market that either of you operates in where you don't have any people in the market or on the ground, basically? Is there something? Can you do that remotely?
Again, I was touching a little bit on this before. We can sell our product across the whole European economic area, and we have clients in 14 countries. But in practice, the ones that grow the most and are most successful are when you do the effort of going there. And maybe touching a bit on a point you said before is every time you enter a new market, you have to take a step back and remember what it was on your first market at the very first day or as your first expansion, because you need to be setting the right expectations and not waiting for too much from this market in 1 month. You grow so much from your existing markets that you tend to forget that it takes time to be successful in each new market, and you need to give the new countries time to figure it out and to figure their own product market fit, essentially.
Is there, we've talked a lot about how to make it work, how to expand, and how to be especially available in all the countries, even if you don't really do anything actively there, but you're available to customers in theory. Is there anything, have you decided against a certain market because of a certain factors? Is there something that would say to you, okay, we're available there, but it's really not worth putting anything in there because it's very, very different from our core product, the need in that market? Have you had any experience in that? Patrick, you nodded already.
Yeah, I mean, for us specifically, we always found the UK market extremely attractive just because for our, just put into context, in Germany, probably less than 5% of kind of small business lending transactions are done through any kind of a digital platform, or even just the bank's digital platform. If you look at at the UK, it's something like 50-60%. So there's a much higher degree of acceptance for alternative lenders, digital financial solutions. But on the flip side of it, the UK market is so crowded. Probably for every successful alternative lending or fintech in Germany, you probably have 50 or 100 that are better funded, more experienced, larger in the UK market. So we always kind of looked at it because it's a cool market and a lot of opportunity there. But then we always decided not to do it just because we're not special in that market. It's very difficult to differentiate ourselves.
Mette, what market will Pleo never be in?
I'm not going to say there's any market we will never be in, but what I would say is that it's important for us we want to make Europe win, right? We want to support European companies. And when we have European companies that have US entities or otherwise, we want to support them in that journey. But I think there's a lot we can do in Europe still. So yeah.
I'm on my side always thinking about the infrastructure, and we try to build things from the ground up. That's one to. For us, it's countries with exotic currencies, let's call it, that I would love to be in these markets, but it's so much tougher from a product perspective. So Denmark, I would love to be in this market, or Poland, the Czech Republic, where lots of innovations are yet to happen in the fintech space. But from a product and infrastructure perspective, it's almost a whole new company that you need to build to go there. So I'm not saying we will never go there, it's just a tougher step to go into.
I guess for you guys, I mean, we're both Swiss, so I guess for you guys, Switzerland is probably also not such an easy market.
That pains me to say, but you need a new license, and it's tough to get a new license in Switzerland.
I'm feeling happy that we started in Denmark, It's like...
We're almost at the end now. In one sentence, if there is a prospective founder, already a founder in the audience who wants to expand, one sentence, what's your advice, how to do it or how to not to do it? One after another. Maybe Mette, you want to start?
I would say be bold, but be very intentional. It's going to be complex and it's going to require hard work. So have your playbook lined up and then do the hard work.
I would say what I said in the beginning, focus on sales and understanding the sales process. It doesn't matter if you enter a new market and you can't make any money there or sell your product. So keep that at the front of your mind when you're doing it.
And maybe just being patient and making sure you wait before you make harsh decisions and that you're ready to adapt the way you do business to go into a new market.
That's good advice. Thank you so much for your time. This was very insightful from all three of you. I hope you all learned something new. Yes, I'm glad that you were here. Thank you so much. Big round of applause.
Thank you.
Please,